Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, October the 8th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a family-friendly podcast, which we try to be some most of the time, so sometimes words may fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, what can we get into on this wonderful weekend, I guess you could say? Well, let's start with Joe Biden. President Joe Biden, or Dark Brandon, as the conservatives call him, because, well, Joe is surprisingly outside the bills and plans that he wanted to get through. He actually got in quite some monumental deals. However, just recently, within the last few days, he decided to take on something that every president has said about doing, but in this case, it looks like he may pull off, well, I won't say highly impossible, but this is definitely going to be a 9 on the difficulty level.
Today, President Biden changed the lives of thousands of Americans 33 days before the midterm elections.
No one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana.
The president granted a full pardon for simple possession of marijuana as a federal crime. Weldon Angelos has been advocating for this clemency.
Having this pardon is going to allow these individuals to move on with their lives.
But there had been no outward sign this dramatic move was coming. The president held unrelated events in New York State. Aboard Air Force One, he used his pen to wipe out these prior federal convictions, an estimated 6,500 people convicted from 1992 to 2021, and thousands more who live in the District of Columbia. Angelos previously had his own drug convictions pardoned and met with Biden officials on this policy.
The society has determined that cannabis is not a crime, and so the federal government needs to catch up with the rest of the nation.
Advocates say these convictions lead to real-world barriers in jobs and housing that have been a greater burden in minority communities. Candidate Biden in 2020 promised to take action on marijuana convictions.
A marijuana conviction. Automatically, that should be expunged. So when you get asked a question, have you ever been convicted? You can honestly say no, because you have to put it down now on a job application.
Laws and attitudes have changed. 19 states and the District of Columbia permit marijuana use for adults. Medical marijuana use is legal in 38 states and D.C. The president is urging governors to grant similar pardons, and his administration will review whether marijuana should still be classified with drugs like LSD under federal law.
And Kelly joins me live now. Kelly, the president is not decriminalizing marijuana possession with these pardons, right?
That's right. He doesn't have that power. Congress would have to change federal law on marijuana possession. And the president is clear that there must still be strict laws on trafficking, marketing, and selling marijuana to underage users.
Okay. So, like I said, about a 9 on the difficulty level. Yes, Biden is moving forward, pardoning those of simple marijuana. But as he loves to say, when it comes to the really thing that he should be doing, was I don't have the ability to decriminalize marijuana. Okay, that's fine, because we don't expect, I'm not going to lie, I'm not expecting any Democrat outside of Corey Greaves, if you don't know who he is, definitely check him out, to step up and literally and figuratively propose the decriminalization of marijuana. Now, he pardoned said people, pardon said people 6,500 plus to be estimate to be fairly close. So 6,500 people are more than likely going to have their records expunged because they've been pardoned. Cool. Let's do the one thing that should have been done since the Reagan administration. You know, the whole war on drugs bullshit. Let's finally decriminalize marijuana. As you saw right there, 19 out of the 50 states have legal marijuana. 39 out of the 50 states have medical marijuana. So, what does that tell us? That simply tells us it's beyond time. Now, do I think Biden's going to ask Biden's going to ask the Department of Justice to ask his cabinet to look in this to see about if marijuana can be declassified? Why not? Now, I will say this: I wish the president would come out, but again, this is Joe. Keep in mind, this is Joe Biden. I don't expect Joe Biden to turn around tomorrow and say we need to honestly make marijuana legal. I don't know why. It seems such an easy aspect. Now, again, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't consume edibles or things of that nature. I got plenty of friends that do, and I see the benefits. A lot of people see, oh, well, marijuana is tied to laziness and crime and drug trafficking and all this. I was like, you said the same thing about tobacco and liquor during the Prohibition era. You know, when in the lower South, when the lower South and the upper, and you know, when the North and the South were still having their little issues, you kind of forgot Prohibition. Liquor and tobacco was outlawed, but you still had bootleggers running it up from one side of the world, one side of the country to the other. It's the same way how NASCAR was invented. The point I'm making is that eventually tobacco and alcohol became taxed, became legal, no longer became problems. So what am I saying about marijuana? Same deal. You know, well, it keeps on getting busted because they said, well, that was Mexico's cash crop. The cartels will haul that in. Trust me, they got other stuff which carries a lot more value than marijuana. The fact of the matter is, yes, we can decriminalize marijuana. We can expunge the record of those with marijuana charges. We can actually, for a lot of people who don't understand this, there are a lot of people in jail right now who are only in there on marijuana charges. So you know what would happen if we decriminalize marijuana? It's very simple. If we decriminalize marijuana and we made marijuana legal, not only have you created an already booming industry, because every city and state that has legal marijuana basically has a surplus. They don't have a deficit in their budget, they have a surplus. Check out all 19 states. All 19 states where marijuana was legal, check their surplus, check their budgets. You won't find any deficits. You'll find surpluses. The point I'm making out of that is not only is it a booming industry, we can also, and I'm just saying, a lot of people in jail will be out and expunged. And you know what that doesn't hurt? That only hurts the corporations that own the prison systems. That's the only people it hurts. Corporations like CCCA in Tennessee, I use that as an example because they have their headquarters here in Nashville. They own a lot of prisons, including the ones here in Tennessee. And they charge per head that they have in their prisons, which, if you look at some local state systems, have a fast food way of putting people from arresting to prison in record freaking time. But a lot of those were marijuana convictions. Again, marijuana, and I will argue this all the time, marijuana is nowhere in the area as LSD, as fentanyl, oxycodone, Percocets, or anything else that's considered a high-level narcotic that can do a lot more damage to someone or someone under the influence. As it was said by Cat Williams, nobody has ever OD'd on weed. He may look dead, but he's actually sleepy, and he's going to wake up hungry after eat everything in your house. That's the side effects. And let's not forget, marijuana has helped with PTSD, anxiety, and many other mental health issues. Because you know why? Not everybody likes popping pills. Because here's the thing I'll say about the industry, that they push Percocets, they push oxycodone, they push all these narcotics on people, especially soldiers. soldiers who have determined to have PTSD and other issues from the time they've served, where some soldiers have realized, I don't want to pop pills or I don't want to, live by this, but a little bit of cannabis mellows me out, helps me through, and is a lot better than what you're getting on your side. So yes, I do commend Joe Biden on using his presidential pardons on simple marijuana. But as I usually say with a lot of Biden's plans, go farther. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. As we're nearing the midterms next month, Democrats could have easily won this by a landslide if they did. And they had multiple routes. They had multiple routes to the promised land. Number one, increase the minimum wage. Increase the minimum wage. It's still $720, $7.29 an hour. Should have increased the minimum wage. Number two, eliminate student loan debt. He kind of halfway did it. He kind of sat there and said you still need to pay because for some odd reason, a lot of moderate Democrats have this disconnect with the rest of the public because they think we can pay stuff back. Because when they went to college was less than $500 or less a semester, not the staggering thousands it is now, depending on what college you go to. But half on that. The big one again, making marijuana legal. Had he did that and got the Democrats to push that through, they would have had this midterm by a landslide. But again, it's Biden. He tries to be a centrist president, but moderate Democrats are just Republican light. I commend him. I truly do for doing this pardon. But as in all his plans, go farther. Meanwhile, we're going to switch gears for a second because the Uvalde situation, we have another officer that is no longer a part of the force. And it goes back to what I said many podcasts ago, that it's amazing that one by one officers are getting let go, which only tells you of the fact that during those 70 plus minutes where there was no action, how are some of these officers still carrying the badge?
Jaw-dropping CNN exclusive. A police officer under investigation for her slow response to the Robb Elementary School shooting was hired to protect other Uvalde school kids. But now there's a big update.
And CNN Shimon Prokupez broke this story. What's the latest now?
The latest is this officer is now fired. The school district announcing that they've terminated her, that they've removed her from the school. Of course, parents were really upset when this news first came to them yesterday. We spoke to them before our story aired, that they had hired this school police officer. She was a former state trooper with the Department of Public Safety, the DPS, and she was under investigation for her failed response to the school shooting. And somehow, some way, the school hired her to be a police officer at the elementary school there. What's interesting is that in the statement that the school district issues is that they say that the reason why they fired her is over comments that we aired that she made at the end of the whole shooting when it had been over and they had rescued some of the kids. She talked about some things. And what the school says, the reason that they fired her is over those comments. And basically they said that they were deeply disturbed over these comments. These were not comments that certainly that they would find or anyone would find particularly very useful in anything. They said they're just deeply distressed by the information that was disclosed yesterday evening concerning one of our recently hired employees, Crimson Elizondo, and they apologized to the parents for this. Take a listen to what they're referring. There are these comments from this officer.
My son's in daycare. He's not old enough.
Yeah, I saw you.
Yeah, no. No, if my son had been in there, no, I would not have been outside. I promise you that.
So certainly those are comments that obviously the families found, particularly disturbing. The fact that she's saying that there, and then she would be in a school. These parents would see her, and that's how the story came to us. A parent of one of the victims saw her at the school, and they recognized her from body camera footage. And then they said, "Well, she's former DPS. How is she now working at the school?" The other thing, what's really troubling, and we're just getting this too. This is all new. That the Texas Department of Public Safety just released information pursuant to a public information request that indicates that they notified the school that she was under investigation by the Inspector General. As early as August 1st, July 28th, there's a letter that says that they notified pursuant to a background check from the school. The school had asked them, okay, she's a DPS officer. We're about to hire her. We need a background check on her. And so the DPS sends them this information. Now we don't know why. Why did the school in the end hire her? We have no accounting from the school. They have refused to answer any of our questions. They've not told us anything about the hiring process, the vetting process. So obviously the pain here for the families certainly continues. They're still kind of getting like piecemeal. They're not getting a full picture. And, you know, still questions for the DPS and how their officers responded. She was one of the first officers on scene at that school. And the reason why she was referred for investigation was because she wasn't prepared. She didn't have her gear with her. She didn't have her tactical vest. She didn't have her long rifle. And just her conduct throughout that shooting really raised a lot of concerns for the DPS. And so they referred her for the investigation, and then she winds up working for the school. It's just incredible.
But Shimon, I just have to say, none of this would have come to light if not for your reporting.
No.
You have stayed there. You've been there for months. You have been asking all of the questions that the parents can't get answers to because we really didn't ever leave
Right.
Uvalde. You have stayed there.
No, thank you. And I think credit goes to the parents also. You know, they're really fighting. But there is the district attorney there who's refusing to release any information. And right now there's this battle. But I think this is going to start shaking some things. And all I can say is like our reporting is going to continue. There will be more information.
Okay, and we're just going to cut it off there. So yes, that one individual that they showed was literally caught on audio saying, if that was my child, I wouldn't be sitting here. So they decided to fire her. Understandably so, but that's more of we're covering our own ass, if you think about it. One of their officers that were involved sat there and said, if that was my child, I wouldn't be sitting out here. Which is interesting because several weeks ago, we covered parents who were trying to get into school while officers sat outside, and the officers prevented the parents from going in there and getting their kids. Even though there are some corroborated stories that parents were able to get through the police, get their kids out, and leave. I'm not surprised by this, but it kind of goes back to what I said. Every officer that was there that day who waited 70 plus minutes along with the police commander do not need to protect and serve. They should not be on the force. Shouldn't be. There is no excuse that those officers sat right there under a camera for 70 minutes while kids and teachers got killed, and yet they were still able to for a lot of them, and I say a lot of them, are still able to protect and serve. That goes beyond the level of insanity. It really, truly does. But move right along, guys. You guys may remember that a while back, New York did pass a new gun resolution. Well, that gun resolution actually is currently is kind of being held in contempt by a judge. The law called the Concealed Carry Improvement Act replaced the proper cause standard that's currently with New York law that said that you need to demonstrate good moral character, which meant that under the new law, you would now have to provide a list of current and past social media accounts, the names and contact information of family members, cohabitants, and at least 4 character references to complete the license application or renewal process. 18 hours of in-person live firearm training is also required by law. That particular part is currently seen as unconstitutional and is kind of being removed. But I think that's crazy because as we are starting to see that a lot of society, and I can't blame society, there's a shooting almost everywhere. A shooting is literally occurring almost on a daily basis somewhere. I'm the first to say it. As a gun owner, yeah, that concerns me. That a shooting occurs almost on a daily basis. That somebody, and again, these aren't, and this is the one thing that I say, that some people believe that, criminals shouldn't have access to guns. Well, here's the problem with that statement. The last couple of shootings, mass shootings, were not done by criminals. They were done by individuals who had access to weapons that they shouldn't have access to. And yes, I am one of those greater fools, as people love to say. I am one of those ones that do believe that, yes, had we had greater legislation, had we had tighter restrictions, had we had mandatory requirements on a yearly basis, I think that would cut down on gun violence tremendously. Do I think that you need to give a history of your social media accounts and family members and things of that nature? That's a bit of a stretch. It is. Now, I've said it like this. We could in the US model our regulations for guns after certain countries. Japan is my go-to. Why do I say Japan? Because Japan, in my opinion, has the strictest gun laws for any country. Number one, you can barely, the only thing I'll disagree with, in Japan, you can't own shotguns. You can own handguns, can't own shotguns. In Japan, you have to take a mandatory psych eval is required. You have to go through a gun training class, requalify every year. You have to buy and get insurance, liability insurance for concealed carry. And on top of that, if you are arrested or implicated, your rights are revoked and you are to turn your firearms in as soon as possible. Simple. Very simple. Why is that like America? Don't get me wrong, like I said before, I'm a gun owner. I do believe in the fact that the Second Amendment was not just about carrying. Because again, the Second Amendment, as a lot of people forget to say, the interpretation behind the Second Amendment was to defend yourself against a tyrannical government. That's it. And also have localized militias against a tyrannical government. Because the Founding Fathers believed that the people should be able to defend themselves if the new government they are creating was ever going to end up like the monarchy they escaped from. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with your right to bear arms. It has your right to defend yourself against tyrannical government. But that also being said, in this day and age, I can't blame anyone who wants to carry because, again, you run into this situation where there's someone out there with a gun that shouldn't have it. But the whole thing about a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun, that's BS. You've already proved that. But that being said, I do believe that we can find a way to do proper legislation and mandatory requirements. However, the social media thing, that's kind of a stretch. When we could easily do red flag laws. Red flag laws, in my opinion, will work a whole lot better than turning in your digital footprint and having them scrub through it. When technically, due to the Patriot Act, they can kind of do that anyway. Just saying. But move right along, guys, to the news in the week. The news that we're capping off for the week. Herschel Walker. Whew. What can we say about this man that literally and figuratively is the defining lighting moment of the GOP? The party of family values, right? Always the party of family values of good moral character. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's recap Herschel's week so far.
Tonight, Republican candidate and former football star Herschel Walker forcefully denying an allegation that's rocking the critical Georgia Senate race. A new accusation that Walker, who supports an abortion ban after 15 weeks without any exceptions, paid for his then girlfriend to have an abortion in 2009.
Do you know the woman that is making this allegation?
I have no idea, but it is a flat out lie.
The explosive report appearing in the Daily Beast, which did not name the woman, citing privacy concerns. She says she and Walker agreed she would have the abortion. The Daily Beast publishing a photo of a get well card she says is from Walker. The news outlet also says she gave them a receipt from an abortion clinic and an image of a $700 check she says is from Walker. NBC News has not seen nor independently verified any of the documents.
I never asked anyone to get an abortion. I never paid for an abortion, and it's a lie.
But tonight, Walker is facing fierce criticism from his 23-year-old son, Christian, saying Walker's family urged him not to run because we all knew some of his past.
Don't lie about your life at the expense of me, my mom, and all of the people that you've affected throughout your life. You don't get to pretend you're some moral family guy.
Herschel Walker tweeting, "I love my son no matter what," and blasting the allegations as a last-minute distraction by Democrats.
This inflation, the border wide open, crime. They don't want to talk about that. So they're making up lies now because they need this Georgia seat.
Now, top national Republicans are rallying around him, from former President Trump to Senator Rick Scott, tonight saying Democrats know that Herschel Walker is winning, so they have cranked up the smear machine. Incumbent Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock not weighing in on the controversy, but saying he's been a consistent abortion rights supporter.
Yeah. So Herschel Walker, the man that lied about graduating top of his class at University of Georgia. University of Georgia said, no, you didn't. The same man that lied and said that he was a law enforcement agent, which again he wasn't. He was basically an honorary agent, which is basically a title holder. Why are we surprised that yes, that Herschel Walker, a former football player, may have paid for an abortion for a woman? Again, and I found it funny that not only, again, this is all allegations, none of this has been validated. The woman has not came forward, I guess. But he tries to there and say that the Democrats are trying to smear his name. The Daily Beast is a conservative paper. Conservative paper. Conservative meaning right-leaning. So it's amazing to me that Herschel Walker and the rest of the Republicans try to say, well, the Democrats are running a smear campaign. No. The Daily Beast, the New York Times, and the other publications are picking this up, and they're trying to research it. This has nothing to do with the Democrats, who, by the way, Raphael Warnock said, I just support women's rights to their own bodies. He didn't say nothing about Herschel Walker. Nothing about Herschel Walker was said from Raphael Warnock. But I find it interesting that Herschel Walker is somehow still a votable candidate, even more so where he is caught in a lie. Again, this shouldn't be surprising he was caught in a lie, because during his prayer breakfast, they did ask him about this. They asked him about the abortion and what he said, and this is not surprising.
Reach out to any of the mothers of your children?
No.
To ask why? Why not?
Why'd I need to?
Well, because according to the article, the woman who says that you paid for her to have an abortion is also the mother of one of your children. It seems like that's an easy way to.
Because of the article, I had more kids. That's why I didn't reach out to anyone, because I said no, and that's what I mean. When I said no, I said it's not correct. That's a lie, and that's what I mean. That's a lie.
But if the woman said that,
yes, let me go to her.
Thank you. You said that if this did happen, there's nothing to be ashamed of. How do you
Wait,
square
I never
that?
said.
You said that this morning on you.
No, what I said, I was talking about something totally different than if this did happen. I said when I was with my ex-wife in my past, nothing to do with what this woman said.
So
I said this here, the abortion thing is false. It's a lie. And that's what I said. I said anything happened with my ex-wife or what Christian was talking about, I don't know. But as I said, if anything happened, there's nothing to be ashamed of, because my ex-wife and I have been the best of friends with her husband and my wife. So that's the thing I've said. And I said nothing about if it did happen, because I said that's a lie.
Okay. So he sat there and said that the reporter had asked that on a certain show that he sat there and said, well, you said this on Hugh Hewitt's show. He says, I didn't say it that way. Okay. Well, lucky for us, and the beauty of Google, we can find the transcript. So here's the transcript, right? He was on this person's show, Hugh Hewitt, right? Was on there this Thursday. Now, the funny thing about this is if we go back to where he actually says it, and again, you can literally look this up via search. So here's the question. Hugh, is there anything Hewitt had asked, is there anything you need to be forgiven for vis-a-vis a woman whose name we do not know? Do you know who this woman is? And do you need to be forgiven? Why is that a question? I have no idea. However, Herschel Walker, no. What? Well, that's what's so funny. And I'm saying I've been forgiven because of all the things I did when I went to the thing with my ex-wife and all that, and the things I did, I don't know how many years ago that I wrote in my book. I forgot. I wasn't perfect. I had problem with my mental health. And I hate to say I've been born again, but I have a new life. And I've been moving forward. And had that happened, I would have said it because it's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, people have done that, but I know nothing about it. And if I knew about it, I would be honest and talk about it. But I know nothing about that. Y'all, if that didn't read like OJ was his screenwriter, I don't know what is. Because it's exactly what the reporter said. It's like you said on the show, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Well, that I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about something else. There it is. Hugh Hewitt. Feel free to look it up. The transcript is right there. It amazes me so that Herschel Walker and the rest of the GOP, because the GOP is standing behind him, by the way. The GOP is standing behind him and saying, well, we support him because they got no choice. It's not because of the fact they actually like Herschel Walker. It's the fact that somehow it's still a close race between him and Raphael Warnock. Somehow, I would say because a bunch of idiots are voting conservative and they see Herschel Walker and they're like, oh, it's a black dude that we can actually like. And I guess they go that route. But Herschel Walker has been caught so many times lying about this that, dude, your own child has came out and said, we didn't even want you to run in the first place because of everything that was going to come out. Now, again, I'm not expecting politicians to be perfect individuals. If you had an abortion or you paid for an abortion, own up to it. But that's the GOP's problem. See, the GOP doesn't like to own up to the fact that they make mistakes. Everything is always God, guns, and country. You know, if I do something wrong, if I do something wrong, I can be forgiven. They play the Jesus card. That's what they always play. They always play this. Well, I'm a born again Christian, so I've been forgiven of this. Okay, you may be right with God, but in the eyes of the United States of America, you still owe us some answers, dude. Your absolution may be with God, but you still got to answer the question, because if you lied about an abortion, what else will you lie about? And of course, we've already seen it with Herschel Walker and the fact that, his kids have came out, that there's stories about other things. Like I said, this is just tip of the iceberg. I think more things are going to come out as they come along. It's just the fact, this abortion thing, and the fact that we are so close. We are so close to where it's almost comical that Republicans are standing by him, that I don't know what'll derail him or what'll cause him to drop out or what'll cause Georgians to really pay attention to this man, because he's not saying anything. He's just talking. And keep in mind, he still hasn't had a debate with Raphael Warnock. Just pointing that out. But move right along, guys. There was some news about DACA. I don't know why DACA is still a thing. DACA, much like Obamacare, really should be left alone, especially since it's the only path right now to citizenship that's actually being used. Well, unfortunately, a federal appeals court is actually saying that DACA is unlawful again. And therefore, we must begin the merry-go-round all over again.
Checking more top stories this morning, a federal appeals court has agreed that the DACA immigration policy is illegal, but allowed it to continue for now. The judges sent the case back to a lower court to review a new set of Biden administration rules on the program, which protects immigrants brought to the U.S. as children from being deported. President Biden responded, saying the new ruling means that the lives of dreamers remain in limbo.
So yeah, it amazes me so that we're still. Why is it DACA was around during President Obama's administration? Why is it still a thing? We kept on saying it. It amazes me the entire time how we talk about that there needs to be a path to citizenship in the United States. DACA was the only last standing framework that, albeit it wasn't perfect, but it was something that immigrants can go by to be actual citizens. Republicans have always hated DACA because you know why? DACA could work. That is literally and figuratively the only reason why Republicans hate it. Republicans hate it because it can work. That if an immigrant decides to, if they serve, whether public service or armed forces, then they can qualify to become eventually American citizens. What's wrong with that? We're a nation of immigrants. We have people coming to our borders on a daily basis, and it's not like America's running out of room. But yet, for a nation of immigrants, you have a whole bunch of people, specifically Mayos out there, who would rather us close our borders off because of something Trump said in his first presidential run. Oh, the Mexicans, they're sending their worst. They're murderers, they're rapists, they're sending their worst. Really? And yet, most of them are working jobs that you don't want to work. Most of them are owning businesses that you go to. Most of them are preparing food that you eat. Most of them are in certain areas where they can not only influence you, but your children. But at the same time, you don't believe that in a land that We literally have something called Ellis Island where it says, give me, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. I'm like, and yet we still argue about DACA. Oh, well, it's just unconstitutional. What's unconstitutional about it? It's a path to citizenship. Something Republicans don't talk about, because Republicans, again, are not for anybody except rich, old, white men. You never heard a Republican talking about an immigration plan. Why? They talk about putting borders up. Democrats talk about it all the time, but Democrats can't seem to get on the same foothold, barely with DACA, but they can't seem to get it down. Immigration to me is just like the VA. Both are easily fixable, but it seems they are more profitable broken than they are actually working. But I digress. But speaking of our failure in chief, apparently that the Department of Justice thinks that not all the documents that they seized from Mar-a-Lago may not all been recovered. And again, when it comes to Trump, the plot always thickens, much like his blood from all that fast food.
A little about this NBC News reporting on the DOJ suspicious. How confident is the department that there are still missing documents in Mar-a-Lago?
So what we're told is that the Justice Department suspects that there are still documents outstanding, presidential records that Donald Trump should have turned over to the archives that he didn't. And some of them may have been classified. And we know already that the FBI seized 48 empty envelopes at Mar-a-Lago with classified markings. And the DOJ has hinted in some court filings that they were still looking for missing material. Now we know that a top DOJ official reached out to the Trump team and said, hey, we suspect, you guys may still have classified documents. And now the New York Times is reporting there is a rift within the Trump legal team about how to deal with that.
And so what is that division that is causing the rift?
So a lawyer named Chris Kise, who has roots in Florida, apparently was advocating cooperation and even suggesting hiring a forensic accounting team to go through Mar-a-Lago and look for documents. But some of Trump's other lawyers dismissed that, and they're more defiant, and they've been filing some really angry and accusatory things, suggesting that the Justice Department is acting improperly. And so apparently Trump has taken that.
So again, Trump, failure in chief, has sat there and said that
News, we just learned the department.
Quiet you. So again, Trump, a man who was failure in chief, took documents he wasn't supposed to have because he thought as president, former president, thought he had the ability to classify documents, which he couldn't do. Said documents to Mar-a-Lago, was asked repeatedly to return said documents, refused to do so. And then an entire procedure from the AG to the FBI director to look into and to ensure that we get everything, in which Trump now decided, I'm going to go the legal route and sue. I'm going to get a special master to look over these documents. And then, as in the middle of all this, the Department of Justice goes, wait a minute, we may not have all the documents. At this point, I have to ask, if it was Trump or any other male individual, would they still be free right now? Would they? I mean, seriously, would they? Because I'm going to be honest, if James Brown, just go with me on this, if James Brown pulled what Donald Trump pulled, would James Brown not be in jail right now? Wouldn't he have been in jail the moment they sat there and said, you have documents that you don't no longer have clearance for? Arrest him. If the answer is yes, then what other reason that Donald J. Trump, the former failure in chief, is still out and eating all the McDonald's and golfing and is still trying to dodge all these lawsuits? I'm just trying to figure out, what is it going to take? Because that's the big thing. What is it going to take to finally bring that man down? And if he does have other documents, it makes you wonder what documents he has. Because if he has documents of a highly sensitive nature, to me, that's a violation of the Espionage Act, which means that's damn near treason. Which means that, yes, a lot of things could be put on the table, like imprisonment, death penalty, all of it. But again, I just have to ask, what is it going to take to finally bring this man in? because because for some odd reason he still has somehow has money, even though he grifts his cult all the time. I mean, you still see MAGA hats and church things of that nature. So we know he's grifting all the time. We know there's a source of money coming from somewhere. We know there are PACs out there that are paying his legal fees. Yes, Republican PACs are out there still paying this man's legal fees. So there's a lot of smoke there. But at the same time, I'm just wondering, what is it going to finally take? The January 6th Commission? Him stealing documents? Him possibly selling secrets to foreign countries? What's it gonna take? That's all I'm freaking asking. But we'll cover that story as it goes along. But the last story I got, guys, for you to our Feel Good News segment. Again, you probably remember this story from about 2 weeks ago. Well, just for all those that don't know, that officers were suspended. 3 officers were suspended post this video that went viral.
Department of Justice is opening a civil rights investigation after disturbing video emerged of police officers in Arkansas beating a man on the ground. 2 officers have been suspended and 1 placed on administrative leave as authorities investigate the incident. We get more now from CBS's Nikki Batiste.
This cell phone video shows 3 cops in Arkansas repeatedly pummeling 27-year-old Randall Worcester, punching him in the head with a clenched fist, kneeing him in the legs. This is bad. And then picking up his head and smashing it into the pavement. The cops, Crawford County Sheriff's deputies Levi White and Zach King, and Mulberry officer Thel Riddle, were not wearing body cameras, but a dash cam recorded the incident.
The dash cam does bring to light other things that did happen there that initiated that wasn't caught on the citizens' camera.
Crawford County Sheriff Jim DeMonte tells CBS News police in a neighboring town received a call Sunday morning about a man, allegedly Worcester, making terroristic threats against a gas station employee, spitting and threatening to cut off the person's face. Worcester then biked about 7 miles where officers caught up with him. He says Worcester handed over a knife and then football tackled one of the deputies and punched him in the back of the head.
When they were going to take him into custody is when he started to fight.
The Arkansas State Police and the FBI are investigating the cops for use of force. All 3 have been removed from duty. Worcester was released on bail today.
Worcester, how are you doing? Doing pretty good today.
He faces several charges in this case, including terroristic threatening.
I believe it was above and beyond what the officers were trained to do and what they should have done in that situation.
Worcester's lawyer says she filed a separate use of force complaint against Deputy Levi White back in 2019 for another client. When I asked the sheriff about that complaint, Nora, he told me he has to look into it.
Okay, so again, that was a story that was continuing, right? All right, we actually have a follow-up to this. Now, don't get me wrong, before we get into the follow-up, guys, what he did, because yes, 3 officers had to beat down a man that bad to get him to subdue. That is excessive use of force. Now, is the man still guilty? As they reported of the things that he did? Possibly. He can face the a jury of his peers for that. But the thing about it is, it makes no excuse that if there's 3 officers that can't subdue 1 man without punching, kicking, slamming his head into the pavement, well, he football tackled a cop. A cop is trained to de-escalate situations. A cop is trained to subdue the subject if the subject gets aggressive or violent. But I would think 3-on-1, you kind of have the numbers game in your failure to get this man into custody and submissive without treating him like it's a WWE ring. Just saying. But anyway, with that being said, guys, the story up there is a follow-up to that story where 2 of the Arkansas deputies were actually fired. We were told that deputies Levi White and Zachary King had been fired, but did not elaborate on the decision. So, out of those 3 people that were beating that man down, 2 of them are now fired. So again, it's like, I can't keep talking about police brutality without saying, well, it's not, well, hey, it's not just black people. As you can see, the person they beat down like a black person was white. it comes back to what I said about police in America. Even though Joe and the others want to introduce a new crime bill, wants to throw money at law enforcement, the problem with law enforcement in America, it needs to be overhauled. Maybe defund the police wasn't the best term to use. I would say police reform. For me, I would say police reform. I would think that there needs to be higher requirements to be in law enforcement. I do believe that law enforcement needs to go through a monthly psych eval. I do believe that law enforcement needs more training. I mean, especially here in Nashville, it's less than 6 months for you to be a police officer here in Nashville, Tennessee. You train longer to be a stylist, a nail technician, a plumber, or a contractor, or even other jobs. Take longer to be certified and trained in than in law enforcement in Tennessee. But the thing, they don't teach them de-escalation tactics. They don't teach them other use of things besides your gun. You have a bevy of non-lethal options that they choose not to use. And at the same time, body cams. Body cams are put on there to enforce good behavior and decision-making among officers. All three of those officers in that video do not wear body cams. So imagine if that dash cam wasn't there, how would that have went? That's the point I'm making. That yes, in police reform, there needs to be major accountability. I have nothing, I mean, that's the only thing I would say. If most police have an issue with that, then in my opinion, you shouldn't be law enforcement. Find another profession to go into if having requirements for the job, for the responsibilities and powers that are bestowed upon you as a law enforcement officer are too much for you, then please, oh please, find a new profession. Don't be a cop. That's all I'm saying. But we'll follow that story as it goes along since two or three officers have been fired. We'll see what happens with the sheriff because the two deputies have already gone. So that being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment because usually how the fact we got here, we cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes they use for humanity, but hey, it's the weekend. Hopefully it's nice and great where you are. And if not, may your work shift go smoothly. But I do want to leave you guys this one feel-good story of changing the narrative of Black fathers and how they influence children. One author does that via this book that we're going to show now.
That was affirmative. And so as the country was grappling with the racial justice movement amid a pandemic, activist Will Jawando sat down to recast the image of Black fathers.
Most people don't know, for example, that the majority of Black fathers are in the home, just not always married. They're actually more engaged in the daily activities of their children, bathing, feeding, reading to them.
Jawando seeks to expand the definition of Black parentage in his book, My 7 Black Fathers, profiles of men who entered his life, teaching him about love, acceptance, and respect.
I only have one biological father, but each of these men and many others played an integral role in making me who I am in my journey to wholeness.
Jawando married and a father of 4, born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland. He writes of a strained relationship with his natural father, being shunted from school to school, burdened by the low expectations that hold down too many Black boys.
I was looking and yearning for a passage, kind of an entry point into my Blackness.
He found it in the man who helped him connect to his Nigerian roots, his first Black male teacher who taught him about self-esteem, the coach who taught him acceptance.
One of the things that struck me is a lot of the mentors in your life, these fathers, didn't realize the role they were playing in your life.
I'm fortunate to have 5 of the 7 still alive, and several of them, including my own stepfather, Joseph Jacobs, said they didn't realize the impact they were having.
Like Barack Obama, for whom he worked in the White House, like Jawando, biracial and son of an African father.
He was really helpful to give really practical advice from life experience himself of navigating my role as a husband and a father. And also just dealing with, I think, some fears. Similar to me, he had fears of whether he was going to be a good father, not having that relationship with his father at a young age.
What does this speak to, men like myself or yourself now, who are successful and largely secure in life?
That nothing is too small. We all have something to give.
A lesson he hopes will change the narrative while paying homage to Black fathers.
These relationships literally can change and save lives, and that's what happened with me.
I thought that was pretty cool. I could spend, I don't want to spend the next hour on that because I cannot tell you the importance of a father, much less a black father. And the fact that he took his life experiences from the men who stepped into that role without knowing they stepped in that role and influence and changed that man's life. It just goes to show you having a father in your life is effing crucial. And for a lot of people, including myself, I am very, very grateful to definitely have that in my life as well. But again, I can't, I don't want to get preachy and I don't want to get misty eyed because that's the truth. Black fathers definitely do matter. But with that being said, guys, we're going to do it for this podcast. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Before I do get out of here, guys, do some shameless plugging as usual. Do want to shout out to my buddy Vaughn at Big BZ out on all socials. Vaughn Westwood on Facebook. Definitely check him out on his TikToks as well as his Big BZ thinking, as well as his new beats that he produces. Produces? I'm sorry, I'm having a grammar issue. That he makes. Let's go with that. But definitely check him out. Of course, with me, guys, all my socials start with BlockBox447. You can definitely find me anywhere. Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, things of that nature. Like and follow me, guys. I usually post everything that I watch and read, including gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. Also, guys, I'm just saying, especially the brothers out there, let's try to be kind to one another. Let's try to be kind. I'm not asking you to be good Samaritans. I'm not asking you to, go out of your way. But if you see another brother out there in the street, what's up? How you doing? How your day going, man? We need to have that camaraderie that we used to have. That's my big, if that was the one wish I would have, it'd be that. At the same time, guys, please, oh please, as Shaq said so eloquently, don't wait till tomorrow. Check up on your people. Call them, text them, however you get in touch with them. Check up on everybody. Because again, everybody's battling something that you may not know about. But if you call them and check on them, you might do a little bit more than brighten up their day. You may actually save a life in the process. Because maybe we just need to have that word, that encouragement, that something from them, in order for us to, to have that moment that we're not alone. Because you are definitely not alone. The track you see at the bottom, guys, I just want to make that just a wee bit bigger. If you copy and paste that into your browser, take to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all my podcasts. How the Frack got here, get bit, and of course, it's Ultimate's podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe, guys, as we are trying to make these shows bigger. Because I would love to make this my job, but hey, until then, grind till we shine. That's the way I look at it. And also, if you are going to be in high traffic areas, a lot of people in very little room, and some people may forget BOs because there's a lot of cons out there, especially if you're on the geek side like I am. Please, oh please, wear a mask. And if you feel sick, please stay at home. When you protect yourself, you protect others, because we are still in a pandemic. Corona, monkeypox, and all that is still out there. And the only way we're going to finally beat this pandemic is to actually do the things to protect ourselves, which protect others. So, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, people. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black 4-star military general to the armed services. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you for all watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this. Peace.